Oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone. We'll get underway. Thank you very much. So this is the meeting of the IT subcommittee today, Friday, October 4th. I'll just run quickly through the agenda. We have a relatively brief agenda, but I know there are a number of presentations to be made, as well as we have some delegations in the audience as well. So first off, are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to confirmation of the minutes. Are those carried?
Carried.
And then there are the three presentations. I think we're going to hold each of those. So the very first item is the Smart City 2.0 update. Marc-René Ducotre and colleague, please go on ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have the presentation on screen?
No.
I'm learning how to use the mic.
Push the right side.
Push the right side.
Is it loaded?
It is loaded. They're both in front of us, but are they on the screens back there?
Let's see if we can get that up here. Oops, sorry. There it is.
Wow, nice and high. Yes.
Okay, so mine's this way?
What's the screen? Yeah, there.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
It's a good thing we're the digital team here. So. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to take the opportunity to tell you that we're extremely pleased about being able to provide you with an update on the Smart City 2.0 strategy. As you know, this is a strategy that's near and dear to the service transformation team, but also to the entire ICS department, and I would venture to say the city as well. I want to thank a few folks that are attending here today as part of the presentation. We have various departments, as you know, involved in the Smart City. Smart City doesn't just reside in one service line, but in several. And we have folks here from Transportation, Economic Development, ITS, PIMR, RCFS, Public Works. Many people are moving forward on a number of fronts on the Smart City, and I want to thank them for attending today. As part of the presentation, I would just want to circle back by way of reference to the strategy itself and the three key pillars that make up the strategy. As you know, the first pillar is a connected city. A connected city is defined by creating a city where all residents and businesses are connected in an efficient, affordable, and ubiquitous way. We have a smart economy, which stimulates economic growth by supporting knowledge-based business expansion and attraction, local entrepreneurs, and smart city talent development. And the third pillar is an innovative government. Develop innovative ways to impact the lives of residents and businesses through creative use of new service delivery models, technology solutions, and partnerships. So what I'd like to do for the balance of the presentation is provide you an update of all the work that we've initiated since the strategy was approved in November 2018. And I'll take you through each one of these pillars to highlight some key initiatives that we're moving forward with. So starting with the Smart City governance, as you know, the report had highlighted some next steps for the Smart City 2.0 strategy, one of which being setting up a Smart City governance. And we've set that up in the last 20 months, and let me walk you through it briefly. We have, at the very top of the governance structure, we have the executive oversight, which is led by the general manager of the Innovative Client Services that reports into the IT subcommittee, as you know. Following that, we have portfolio direction that sits with service transformation. Myself as director of service transformation leads that portfolio direction. We've set up a steering committee as part of that that's made up of our CIO and other critical city departments involved in delivery of the strategy. And we've recently set up an advisory group made up of our external partners to provide some guidance from outside of the city as well. And following that, we have, of course, our portfolio management office that manages all the various initiatives that fall within the various departments. They, of course, manage project execution teams on the various projects and also engagement opportunities. As you know, one of the next steps from the strategy mentioned the fact that we should set up an engagement approach for smart cities, and we've done so using a portfolio, I'd say, of potential capabilities that we can use to engage the public more broadly. As you know, we've initiated beta testing, so as we release solutions, we will be approaching that through a beta phase, allowing the public to provide greater levels of input into products before we have fully featured solutions deployed. We're using co-creation sessions when we can as well to involve citizens early on in the design process. We have a community engagement platform that we are currently piloting called Engage Ottawa. It's a crowdsourcing tool, and as you know, we've used that quite successfully with the recent launch of the Open Ottawa platform. We will continue to use hackathons when appropriate. It's a great tool to engage a broader set of community groups and citizens involved in kind of looking at specific topics of interest. We continue with community outreach as well. We've held a number of presentations, most recently at Tech Tuesdays, which I think was very well received and attended. And we'll continue to do that to engage members of the public on our efforts on the smart city front. And we continue to work with post-secondary institution as well in the city. We've got quite a bit of talent at the various universities and post-secondary institutions, and we continue to work with them through our efforts as well. So let me walk you through the three key pillars of the smart city. So a connected city is the first pillar. And let me highlight a couple of, I think, very interesting initiatives that we've launched on the connected city front. First is we're continuing to provide free Wi-Fi in a number of city facilities. I think it's 22 community and recreation centers in all of the Ottawa Public Libraries that we're offering Wi-Fi, and we're currently looking at what the next phase of that deployment might look like, and we're looking at scoping that with our various partners in ITS and RCFS to see what other facilities we might be able to move forward with, and we'll be dealing with that through our governance structure. As you know, we're providing free Wi-Fi on the LRT, which is quite a big milestone for us at the city. So we continue to move forward on that front. We're also positioning Ottawa as a leader in 5G. As you know, we've partnered with the Community Research Research Center since 2017 to establish a test site for 5G technology at Ottawa City Hall. You may have seen them here in the courtyard testing 5G. We were there yesterday actually meeting with them to look at how we can partner further with them on a number of fronts around connectivity. We've expanded this testbed further to other city facilities as well, so that partnership is expanding. And again, we're trying to double down on Ottawa as a telecommunications hub, and we want to continue to support that moving forward. On the city infrastructure, we continue to connect our city infrastructure. As you know, the city has been sensor-enabled for many years and has sensor-enabled many of its assets, everything from bridges to water mains to our fleets to our traffic lights. And we continue to move forward with that. Of note, we had a recent pilot on the smart cone sensors in bike lanes using thermal imaging to detect cyclists and alert motorists. We have an upcoming pilot using sensors to provide data about on-street parking and enabling sensor-based automation to understand parking patterns. So we're continuing to move forward on that front. We are improving the speed of broadband access in Ottawa-Gatineau as well. In July 2019, the City of Ottawa supported the deployment of the first of 2 internet exchange points. You recall, Councillor Leeper, we we had worked with you on that announcement. And there's a second internet exchange point that's expected to be deployed before the end of the year as well. So again, reducing kind of congestion and improving connectivity and latency in the Ottawa area for internet providers. We're moving forward on reducing energy and maintenance costs for the city. You're aware that we are in the process of converting almost 60,000 streetlights in Ottawa to LED lighting technology by 2021. In the future, it will be possible for those LED lights to potentially include sensors and other wireless technology as we prepare ourselves for continued smart city deployment moving forward. So exciting times on this front. As I move forward to a smart economy, which is the second pillar of the strategy, and this is all about driving economic growth and ensuring Ottawa's competitiveness in a global marketplace, let me talk to you about several initiatives that are underway here. So we're continuing to position Ottawa as a strong destination for business investment. The city and Invest Ottawa regularly work to develop marketing materials to promote Ottawa as a strong destination for business investment. But we've also undertaken a place branding collaboration between the city and Ottawa Tourism, and we'll be launching a website that provides access to brand assets, including content playbooks targeted to key audiences, including business. So we're continuing to make investments on that front. We've also developed the first integrated test bed for autonomous vehicles in North America. This is quite an exciting development, and in the last 6 months we've made a major announcement for this, and was incredibly well received. By way of just history here, in May 2018, Invest Ottawa was awarded $5 million under the province's Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Program, and Ottawa was named one of 2 regional technology demonstration sites in Ontario. So this facility, known as Ottawa L5, is complementary to the city's own public connected and autonomous vehicle test track in Canada. And the city staff have supported the AVEN project by designing and implementing a test track which replicates real street conditions, including signalized intersections, pavement markings, pedestrian crossings, cycling lanes, street signs, and parking areas. So really the first integrated test environment in North America. So Traffic Services is also working with Invest Ottawa, which has procured autonomous shuttles or pods manufactured by Origo, which the first demonstration is expected to occur, we're hoping before the end of the year, in the golf course lands between Brook Street Hotel and the Marshes Clubhouse. So exciting times ahead for autonomous vehicles in Ottawa. We're also providing tools to attract and retain knowledge-based talent that Ottawa needs to succeed as a smart city moving forward. Invest Ottawa developed and launched the Talent Attraction and Retention Program for knowledge-based industries. This program includes components such as sourcing strategies and services, events and workshops, talent marketing, and a new standalone Work in Ottawa website. We're connecting industry and government for commercialization opportunities, sort of the GovTech concept and digital innovation concept at Invest Ottawa. So Invest Ottawa is working to drive that market acceleration for industry and government, including the health sector, through the creation of a digital transformation marketplace to connect industry and government requirements with leading-edge technologies. An example would be the creation of a smart health sandbox that will aim to help catalyze the commercialization and adoption of new life sciences innovation with the potential to improve patient outcomes. We're moving forward with fostering innovation and entrepreneurship in Ottawa. As you know, we have an innovation pilot program here at the city, and we're looking at expanding that program to include having the city issue challenges to the market to help us resolve some of the challenges that we may face in our service delivery. This would be in addition to having a continued program supporting startups in testing their beta solutions here at the city. Moving forward to innovative government, which is the last pillar of the strategy. This is really driven by new and improved channels with the city to engage with residents in more customized and personalized ways. So as I mentioned earlier, we've issued a pilot around crowdsourcing called Engage Ottawa. So it's a new way to reach a broader base of citizens to provide input to various initiatives that we're moving forward with. We're moving forward with beta testing, as I mentioned before, both on a city app and on Open Ottawa website that was announced in the spring. We're continuing to empower residents to engage with the city anywhere, anytime. We have issued, as you know, a beta test of our mobile app, allowing residents to submit 311 service requests in context, anywhere, anytime, and geolocate pictures and send them in to the city, creating service requests. And we have the ability to push out notifications to people directly as well. When we release the production version of the app in the fall, we'll also be able to use geofencing to reach out to people in context. So exciting times on that front. Complementary to that, we're also testing new ways of enhancing the user experience with city services. So in 2020, we will be issuing a pilot around what we call conversational artificial intelligence. That'll include a chatbot and also Alexa and Google Home skills so that people can connect with the city through those devices. We are currently running also an augmented reality pilot exposing water pipes underground through an iPad or a mobile device for field workers, and so we're still working through that, and that pilot will be completed before the end of the year. And in parallel, we're looking at opportunities where we could use that technology for citizen-facing applications, and we're hoping to run some pilots on citizen applications, augmented reality, in 2020. We continue to make investments on the open data program. As you know, we've just promoted to production the Open Ottawa portal, which is leaps and bounds ahead of what we had previously. And it allows us to share data from the city's catalog of open data sets with the public in ways that the public can engage in a better visualization tool. So that the average citizen can customize the data that they see, while also allowing third-party developers to still have the required APIs to draw data from the site. So exciting times on that front, and we had some great feedback on the Open Data the Open Data website throughout the beta period. We're also continuing to personalize the residents' experience with the city, and we're going to look at ways to increase preferences that we offer through the MySO account, and also we'll continue to look at notifications and how we can better provide a unified client experience for people that want to customize their interactions with the city. So throughout 2020, we're going to look at the client account and other opportunities to add preferences and notifications. Innovative government as well includes kind of a flip side to the citizen experience, which is the digital workplace that we provide our employees. So in order to enable a real, true, personalized, customized, in-context experience for citizens, we also need our staff to be more increasingly digitized, and so that they're better able to respond to the expectations of citizens that we serve. And there's a number of exciting initiatives on that front that I want to talk to you about. One is around, the first is around visualizing city data for greater insight to drive decision making. We're rolling out an enterprise data visualization tool at the city to exponentially drive data visualization and analytics to drive better decision making in operations to better serve our clients, and that's underway. We just completed a pilot in September, and we're about to start to roll that out to our various departments. We're moving forward with innovation jams, so we're inviting staff and external partners to co-create to improve the client experience. We have set up an innovation jam in late October on the topic of emergency management, and we're quite excited about that. It'll be held at Bayview Yards, and we've invited folks like the Red Cross and others to take part in that so that we can have a very meaningful discussions about potential new and exciting solutions in that space. And we'll be holding other innovation jams as we move forward in this term of council. We're providing staff with a suite of tools to enhance productivity and collaboration opportunities. You might be aware that we've rolled out Office 365. ITS has rolled this out throughout the corporation, and it provides a number of types of functionality to drive collaboration and productivity. We're looking at deploying success factors, HR success factors moving forward, and we're in the midst now of rolling out Ariba. So all core platforms that will continue to drive collaboration and productivity and efficiencies at the city. We've also put in place new policies and tools to enable staff mobility and business continuity. We want to continue to mobile enable our staff, and we're moving forward with further field mobility projects. We've put in place a bring your own device policy, and we're better now able to connect our non-network employees so that we have a more unified employee experience to provide more digital services to clients. We're introducing new data sources to better understand the attitudes, behaviors, and needs of residents to improve service delivery. We're currently running a pilot with of the Environics platform that provides socio-demographic and behavioral data right down to the postal code. So it's quite an exciting set of data that allows us to better understand neighborhood information about our clients. And we're also running a pilot on social media analytics as well that allows us to, again, better understand publicly available sources of information about the Ottawa area. So all of which, creates both an environment for our employees to continue to be digitized and collaborate and be more and more productive in providing the client experience that we want to put in place for citizens, which is personalized, customized, in context. And so on all fronts, we're leading with, I think, quite exciting projects that we've initiated over the course of the last 20 months. And I'll look forward to coming back to IT subcommittee to discuss the projects that we're moving forward with for the balance of the term of council. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we do have delegations on the item. So Mr. Darwin, come on up, no stranger to the ITSC. And as you know, you have 5 minutes for your presentation. I believe that Mr. Darwin is the only delegation. Yep. So if there is anyone else who wants to speak to this item, you have the opportunity to sign up just at the side for the next 5 minutes or so. Matt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to say thanks to you and the staff, Mark, for this excellent presentation. It's always great to hear about all the initiatives going on at the city and understanding how we're making our city government more citizen-centered as part of this smart city strategy. So I did like the comments about the citizen engagement through multiple forums like public engagement and beta programs and such. I thank you for those initial first steps, I guess I would call them. I guess I want to see those more often with more different communities and more different types of engagements, not just beta programs or like let's get involved earlier. Let's talk about things before there's even something to test. So just as we call in the tech industry, like slideware. So here's the ideas of what we're having, and then we can see whether that really meets the needs of the wide variety of citizens that we have and their different needs. Just going through the report, page by page on the connected lighting on page 2. So I'm happy to see this project going forward. I did look at the new open data feed that shows all of the streetlights, which is great, but unfortunately that data set doesn't include which ones have been converted to LED. So it would be really great going forward as we do these smart city projects that the data that's reflected on the new open.ottawa.ca is actually up to date. I'm really looking forward to see what comes out of the expanded innovation pilot program. Sounds really interesting and another way for people to engage in a different way with the city on building collaborative solutions. In terms of the CRM system, that's listed on page 6. I think the customer relationship management is a really, 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 really important piece of how citizens engage with the city. So to me, I noticed it was still marked as in the planning phase, but again, I think this is an opportunity to really have early engagement to look at what citizens want from the government and how that interacts, because it's a foundation piece and everything builds around the CRM system. So if we get that right, then that makes the rest of the work that comes later much easier. On the open data, so I do like the new open data platform. Still early days. The direction sounds great, allowing citizens to slice and dice the data and look at in context. I don't think we're quite there yet, but as I was talking to staff, it's like, well, this is the plan, this is the goal, this is where we want to get to. So the strategy sounds great. In the report on page 7, it does mention that there's some new data sets released, like the Confederation line 1. So I can tell you that data set, it doesn't sound like it really who's going to use that, but yeah, it has actually been used. It has been imported into OpenStreetMap, and so if you're using a mobile app called Maps.me, which uses OpenStreetMap as a base map, well, that Confederation line data is now available in that application. So making open data available to the community allows many, many different applications to use that, and it's not just whatever the city builds as a 311 app or whatever. The last thing on this item, just on slide 8, it talks about winter route optimization for snowplows. So please, please, please make that available as open data, because as a volunteer on the Bike Ottawa, we'd really like to understand how snow plowing impacts the cycling network and making that data available to users. We've got a lot of feedback that is something that people want to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sudds, Councillor Tierney. Any questions for Mr. Darwin? No. Okay. One quick question arising out of the delegation. The request to put winter cycling clearing into the open data set, where is that? We don't ask you directly to do that. Where is that request best made? Is it to Mr. Landry's shop or Mr. Wiley?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So it usually comes through the open data program, and then we funnel that back to the department, which has an open data lead, and then they funnel that back to the appropriate person, which may or may not be, Mr. Landry's in Mr. Landry's, excuse me, area, and then they would make that available.
So the open data team, though, is the clearinghouse for those requests.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Darwin. Turning to questions from committee members, Councillor Sudds.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, first of all, for the great presentation. It's always terrific to hear what's happening and the great progress that's being made. A few questions that come to mind. First of all, now that smart cities, in particular initiatives, are reporting back to this committee versus FEDCO. I see in your governance slide that it is reflected as part of the executive oversight. My question being, how does this, what can we expect, and how does this change how you are going about your day-to-day? I'm thinking in particular around reporting back and the metrics that are being used to assess progress and success on these projects, and when we will have visibility to that.
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So if I understand your question correctly, on the metrics, what we expect to be doing is working through the strategic planning process to establish the metrics. As you may know, the proposed strategic priorities do include connectivity, smart economy, and innovative government. And we're going to be working through that process to establish the metrics so that we have one set of metrics through the strategic planning process that addresses what we want to measure from a smart city perspective. I wasn't sure, Councillor, on the other part of your question in terms of the governance.
So coming to this committee versus FEDCO and what we can expect to be seeing.
Right. I think and we'd be happy to work with the committee, of course, in terms of what you'd like to see on a go-forward basis. What I was hoping to be able to do with the committee is provide regular updates on the progress that we're making through the Smart City, but also get some direction from the committee on a go-forward basis on the types of things that you would like to see. Smart City is going to be it's an evolving thing that happens relatively quickly, and so we have to be, I would say, fairly flexible in our approach moving forward to account for other things that we may want to undertake as we move forward, so that we have a plan. We're working on initiatives, but we have flexibility within the governance structure right up the chain to be able to make changes in direction should we need to.
Fair. On the engagement piece, you're now using a number of different tools, which I think is phenomenal. One that caught my mind, in which I don't know a lot about how you're approaching, is around co-creation. Can you tell us briefly what that has looked like and where you're going with that?
Sure. Co-creation is something that we want to put in place earlier in the process, and we used this just recently around parking. So we brought in some citizens in a focus group to talk about just parking just generally. What are the pain points, whether it's parking availability, is it parking bans, winter parking bans, is it parking enforcement? And we had a general conversation, and then we had on pain points and on potential solutions to pain points. So we literally whiteboarded, used stickies, we worked with them to understand what might work, what might not work, what are the issues that they're facing. It really is almost like a brainstorming session on what the problems might be and what the design solutions might be. So it's very early in the stage of looking at what we might want to do, as opposed to beta testing, which is more further down the path, where you're looking at a product that's a minimal viable product, and then looking at potential other features that people may want to see in it. So I expect to use co-creation in many different circumstances, where we bring people in early on the process, and get that early feedback.
Terrific. And I know you mentioned the Innovation Jam upcoming. I think that's phenomenal. I could go on forever, but I won't. Maybe one last question around the open data and the beta, and really curious around lessons learned from that process. Obviously using Engage Ottawa as the feedback mechanism, but wondering, best practices, lessons learned, ways to improve moving forward for the next time that you use this as your engagement tool.
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I think a couple of lessons learned. One is that it was incredibly helpful to use a crowdsourcing tool. One, because it allows us to first of all, allows citizens to look at what others are posting as things of interest in terms of data sets, and allows people to kind of vote on what might be of interest. And so from that perspective, it creates an environment where people can can collaborate, citizens can collaborate. And from our perspective, it allows us to get a better sense of what might be more important in terms of data sets or features that they'd like to see. So that was incredibly helpful. And it's so helpful that we are continuing to use Engage Ottawa now that we're in production, that we don't want to shut it off. So it's been a very, very good tool from that perspective. I think other lessons learned is I think we could probably do a better job in promoting that feature of Engage Ottawa and crowdsourcing. We did have a lot of feedback, but I think in future this is something new that we've just tried, and I'd like to see more people use that and on a more ongoing basis so that we can continuously get some feedback on our program. You know, before people would email us suggestions on data sets, and we find that this is a much better way to engage the public on this. So important lessons learned on that. Some of the features, if you're interested in understanding some of the feedback that we've got, we had some feedback on simplifying everything from kind of URLs to make the site more easily accessible. We had some comments on accessibility features, and we're working through that and have worked through that on the platform. Some of our data sets do require some refresh over time, and that's typically has been a manual process, and we're looking at ways to automate that because we get a lot of feedback that it'd be better to have an automated process to refresh. We had a lot of great feedback on the storybook capability. We have an ability to do digital storybooks, and people seem to like that and want more of that. On the data sets fronts, we had quite a bit of feedback. We had about 40 data set requests come through, and the most popular being things related to transportation, I would say. Things like speed data from our speed display boards came up as being high. Information on OC Transpo bus routes, more information on that, or traffic collision data, kind of more real-time traffic collision data. You know, the date and time when streets and sidewalks are plowed, you know, we've heard that as well. And provide more kind of spatial GIS layer data for traffic signals. And I can go on, OC trip cancellation data, those kinds of things. So a lot of transportation, I would say, related data sets are coming up as being incredibly popular and in demand. So we're taking that feedback and providing that back to the departments and working with them on their data release plans to see what we might be able to do in what order. So very, very positive overall.
Yeah, fantastic. So it sounds to me like the engagement was more than you expected. Is that fair to say?
It more than we expected, and also in terms of its usability, in terms of feedback, because now we have an ability to reach out to a broader set of folks in the community that can then engage with us, and we get better information about what's a priority for the community out there. So it's on a number of fronts. I think the crowdsourcing tool was a really great add-on feature for us to engage, and you know, the proof's in the pudding. We want to extend that on a go-forward basis now with the platform.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And maybe just one last comment, that this is the first time that I've seen the extent, the detail of the number and scope of initiatives that are happening under Smart Cities. And I can't say enough good things about the extent of that work. I think probably at our default, we need to talk about it more. I think there's a lot to be celebrated in this work, and I'd love to see us continuing to do that. Thinking about the governance structure and how we have some oversight and input into this. A number of these projects I think we would benefit greatly from learning more about, and perhaps moving forward it's an opportunity to spend a bit of time at committee diving into some of those. I think the one you mentioned, which in my mind has far-ranging impact around the sensor deployment, I think that could be a really engaging discussion at a future meeting. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sudds, and that's an excellent suggestion, is to do a deeper dive on some of these, so we can certainly chat about what items we might want to bring forward. I have a few higher level questions, but I'm actually going to, I have answers to a lot of them already, so I'm simply going to ask the committee if the report is received. With Councillor Suds's permission, Councillor Tierney has already agreed. Councillor Fleury has joined us specifically to speak to the Wi-Fi issue, the third item on our agenda. Is it okay with you if we move that up in the agenda? Because I know he's working with a timeline. So we're actually going to skip to the third item, which is on public Wi-Fi. I don't believe we're doing a presentation on this one, just jumping into questions of staff. Oh, and there's a delegation on this one as well? There is a delegation on this one as well. So Mr. Darwin, and I'm just going to ask, Councillor Fleury is under some fairly tight timelines. I know he wants to get to his questions, so, but happy to hear from him, of course.
My comments, thank you, Chair. My comments are very brief, just in the fact that I would appreciate in the future better communication around citizen impact on city services. There was, back in June, there was very little notification that the previous Wi-Fi program was terminating, and then what the direction was for the rollout of the new Wi-Fi program. And we didn't really hear the details until Jonathan Willing wrote a good article in The Citizen on September 1st. So I think, better communication would be great in the future. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. That's a point very well taken, and I tend to agree. Councillor Fleury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for the flexibility. So I wanted to understand, it's unclear to me what our failures or what our challenges have been with IceNet. So it doesn't work, why doesn't it work, and why is the upgrade, what are we expecting out of the upgrade?
Mr. Chair, with IceNet, I think it's important to remember that more than 5 years ago, our sponsorship team approached the market for primarily a sponsorship opportunity, and the agreement that we signed with IceNet, the 5-year agreement, was largely based on the city's push to generate revenue, but also to see if we could marry that up with an opportunity to get free Wi-Fi in city facilities. Because of that genesis, the program that was approved by council was very dependent on it generating revenues through digital advertising of screens and facilities. IceNet, to their credit, put together a creative package and made some assumptions, a pro forma over the 5 years that showed pretty healthy advertising revenue to generate to offset both their initial capital investment in facilities and then the ongoing costs of doing that. The facilities that we selected, the 25, were done in partnership with IceNet, and based on their assessment, they did a tour of many of our facilities. Their assessment of the eyeballs on advertising, essentially capacity and the sites that they thought would generate revenue. Unfortunately, well, a couple of things. The advertising revenue wasn't as robust as they thought it would have been. They incurred additional costs because the concept was to provide hotspots in facilities that would have Wi-Fi, and we quickly learned that as soon as you create a hotspot and the demand, the general public tend to want it to be broader and to expand it, and they did try to respond to that by creating additional hotspots throughout the facilities, but generally not to the satisfaction of the public, and so there was a lot of feedback that what was there was inadequate. And lastly, the deployment of digital screens took a long time, and so they incurred big expense up front and then had trouble recovering from that. Because of that, they got into a deficit position in terms of the program and ended up owing the city money by the end of the contract, a significant amount of money. And they didn't see a way forward where they could generate enough revenue to pay the city, and simply said, you're going to have to look at a different model. And we agreed that it was a good pilot. It provided a service at the time when there was none, but it was not really a go-forward solution.
And then what's the upgrade? Maybe the component on the upgrade? Like, why is the upgrade going to work? What's...
So specifically with regards to those 25 facilities, ITS is putting in a service where we're taking advantage of the infrastructure that we have in place and providing full coverage in those facilities. So rather than simply hotspots, the public will be able to access the Wi-Fi throughout the facility.
So that's exactly what I wanted to hear, which is I've worked in those facilities. It's not a secret. We have cable because we have TVs in the gyms, and we have point of sale systems, and we have class systems, so everything's connected already. So the technology's there, it's just we're not releasing that because there's a capital cost to providing the Wi-Fi pucks or whatever you want to call it. So I guess I'd go a step further. Ottawa Public Library has been a good example. When you go into our libraries, you have your card and you can just input it. So are we working with Ottawa Public Library? Have they learned from you? How does that system work? Because they have a model that people are happy with. We've struggled with the sponsorship components. I get what Dan's saying. Maybe understanding the relationship with OPL in this case.
So what we've done for those 25 facilities in particular, ITS did step in to provide that Wi-Fi service and the enhanced coverage. What we're doing in the future in terms of looking at part of those, the OPL facilities, is going to be under the guise of smart cities in terms of what that larger strategy will look like in implementing public Wi-Fi in the other facilities that we have in place.
Okay, because that's my point, and maybe that could be a takeaway from today is we don't expect revenue from people filling their water bottles at our city facilities. It's a service that as a city we feel is important to provide. We just provide it. And I get where staff came from. It was trying to pilot, we were trying to generate some revenue, trying to be flexible, I get that. People don't care about that. When they go to Lansdowne, and Lansdowne has the TELUS experience, you can get onto the TELUS Wi-Fi network at Lansdowne. Now they have the LRT experience at the underground stations. People don't want to understand the logistics. They just want it to work. So, maybe a little kind of briefing note or just model as to what would be how many rec facilities do we have? What would be the cost to equip them with that Wi-Fi experience that I'm talking about? And where is the current strategic plan as to where you're going? Because right now you're upgrading 25 facilities, but I'm not seeing the game. I'm not seeing where you're heading, and I guess that's sort of my frustration. And then I'd love to add another layer, which is in outdoor gathering spaces. So for example, Mooney's Bay, outside City Hall. We know those areas gather a lot of crowds. How do we get there? What's the model to get there? Because I think we want to be a fun, cool city, and we trip up on, I think the technology's there, is just putting it in place. So I'm not expecting the answers unless you have them, but if you don't have them, is it possible to just share with the members here today those points?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So we are looking at that phase 2, Councillor, at this point as well, and trying to scope that. So we'd be happy to come back and share that information with you. We just need some time to put that scope in place, understand kind of cost implications, funding, and et cetera. But we're in the midst of doing that now. So we have the 25 sites, and then we're looking at the phase 2 and what that might look like. And we're going to drive that through the smart city governance structure to get that done. So if you if the committee can allow us some time just to complete that work, and then we'll circle back and present those findings to you.
Mr. Chair, I can add that there is a rather robust list of sites identified, and it really comes mostly in two streams, identified directly by the community in terms of facility users and documenting which sites have the most demand. And we also have a list of facilities submitted by council, I would say over the last 5 years, because when we did the initial 25 in phase one, many councillors' offices contacted us because they were being contacted by communities to find out whether their facility was on phase two. Because the dynamic of advertising has changed, the initial phase two list that had been preliminary was highly based on volume and ability to install screens. But we do have your lists, Councillor Fleury, you've recently submitted, but we had prior lists that included other facilities, and we have, I think, kind of the hot spots, so to speak, for almost every ward.
Dan, your point's 100%. I as a local councillor, have local interest in my facilities, 100%. I'm biased. But I think we have to take a broader look at this and saying, we provide tap water at every facility, and I believe that that service should be equal. It is an expected service as a public washroom, as an accessible facility, as a water tap system, and we just have to get there. So respect what you're saying, Dan. We need to just get our heads around how do we fund this and once it's in place, right?
Thank you very much, Councillor Fleury. Thanks for joining us today. Councillor Suds?
How did you know, Chair? So maybe just to pick up and to clarify one point around what's next, is this phase two what's being referenced in, actually, I believe through the term of council priorities, the connection strategy, if I'm...
Yeah, we have a connectivity strategy.
Me,
that's,
yes.
Councillor, that reference, especially in this, if you're referencing the Smart City 2.0 strategy, is it's a fiber broadband strategy. I think it was called as part of the Smart City 2.0. That was meant to be very external focused, outside of the city government proper, but more kind of City of Ottawa community.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
At rural connectivity, et cetera, those kinds of things.
Okay. Okay, terrific. So I would certainly echo Councillor Fleury's concerns and thoughts around the fact that this is, I believe, a service we need to be providing. When I first, started questioning where we were at with respect to this, the disconnection of service and the go forward, I appreciate a number of folks throughout this building who answered my many questions. My concern that lied and why I considered to pursue this was just to make sure that we know moving forward who has the responsibility and the oversight and the budget attached to that to ensure that moving forward there's that ownership of Wi-Fi in our buildings. And I think where we are, or where we were 2 months ago, is a product of the evolution of Wi-Fi and the public's expectations. But I just want to get reassurance that moving forward, that ownership, responsibility, and budget exists.
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So to clarify, that's going to sit with service transformation under the Smart City mandate, and will roll up through the governance structure that we've discussed here today. So there is one point of accountability. Of course, I'll be working with the various partners. ITS has been a close partner of ours on this file since the beginning, and we've both kind of tackled that over the last couple of years. And of course with Mr. Chenier's department as well, and so that we'll be bringing that back, but the point of accountability will sit with me.
Terrific. That's great to hear. And budget-wise, does this fall under yourself, under service transformation, or ITS?
Well, Well, I think from a budget perspective, we'll have to scope out what the funding requirements are going to be around the balance of that. But if it sits within the Smart City portfolio, it clearly sits within ICS in terms of budget. But we'll have to come back to you once we scope that out in the funding potentially required to do that, to do the balance of that.
So would we expect to see that in the 2020 budget?
I'd have to circle back to you on that, Councillor, to provide a clear answer on that in terms of the budget requirements around that. We are currently working through that right now.
Okay. And, I mean, there's really two streams when I think about, obviously, the financial implications. It's the actual installation, right, the hardware, the manpower that goes into that, but then there's the ongoing, month-to-month cost of
yes,
this,
correct.
right?
Yep, correct. There's a one-time upfront cost, and then there's going to be an ongoing operating cost, if you will. Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again for answering my many questions over the last couple of months on this, and I appreciate the attention to it. It may seem trivial at times, but I think the reality is the public expects it, and making sure we as a corporation clarify those roles and responsibilities is terrific. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sudds. And you have the answer you're seeking now. The accountability is going to rest with ITSC for making sure that gets implemented and put in. Good. So you're satisfied with that? Thank you. Councillor Tierney?
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you for your hard work on this. I was around, I guess I'm getting to be a little older now, when this all first started to take place, and we thought, what a great opportunity. An advertiser is picking up the tab. I also know, as chair of the Ottawa Public Library Board, the costs involved. Councillor Fleury talks about, well, you already have it in the building. Well, you can't run it on the same network for a multitude of reasons, security, reporting, etc. That's a big pill to swallow, so it's not as simple as he may be painting that out. Would you like to comment on what kind of security requirements would have to be put in place to be able to run essentially a B network? And part two, I don't know if this would be Dan or not, the councillor had mentioned he had emailed some of the facilities that he felt he would like to see in his ward. Was there a call out to councillors? Because having 23 cats, it gets a little unwieldy, and I think it's best left to staff to best determine, because there will be priorities. You can't do this whole hog for the entire city of Ottawa. Just won't happen, and I would like to know what that process would be.
Mr. Chair, just to address the part that I spoke to earlier, there are really two lists. There's a list generated by staff of our assessment of facilities, our knowledge when people come to the front counter and say, why don't you have Wi-Fi here, those kinds of things. So we have that list, and by and large, they tend to be the places that you would think of that people are spending a little bit more time on, arenas where they're waiting for their kids, so sitting in the bleachers, pools during swimming lessons, large lobbies of complexes where people tend to gather and wait, those types of things. We also have another list that speaks to more the community side of this, where the neighborhood residents tend to not have Wi-Fi, or it's not as pervasive as in some neighborhoods. And in those cases, people are looking to Wi-Fi not as an entertainment or a business thing, but simply to be able to go somewhere and do basic transactions. A little bit like the old CAP sites that we used to have with computer terminals, which we still have a few of, but I think it's more that kind of very basic necessity that I need this to connect to the internet. So we have two lists. We never did do a broad call out to councillors, but councillors have been submitting as they hear from residents, usually in the way of an inquiry of when is Wi-Fi coming to XYZ facility. We've been documenting and keeping a list of that so that we're aware of the pressures in each ward.
And to your question around security, we are ensuring that it is segregated from the infrastructure that we do have in place for city staff. We also have signage up so that the public is ensured that it's an SSID provided by the City of Ottawa to ensure the public security as well on their devices.
Great. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to make sure it was part of public record. It's not free. There is a cost. We certainly want to provide this to our constituents. We'd love to, but we do have to set those priorities, and I think that's identified. And just a quick shout out, all 33 branches of our Ottawa Public Library do have free Wi-Fi. Feel free to use it anytime you want. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, members of the committee. I just want to make sure that I understand what I think I've heard coming out of the discussion today. It sounds like you took perhaps some informal direction from Councillor Fleury to do that dive in terms of what facilities is our staff proposing would have Wi-Fi moving forward, and on sort of what timetable and at what cost. It does not sound to me like we're necessarily going to see a 2020 budget ask. Would you propose to bring a report forward sometime in the next quarter or so, outlining what that strategy would be for more public Wi-Fi?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. We can certainly do that and come back to you with a report outlining the work that we've done around this phase 2 and provide it to you and present it to you.
I know I'd appreciate that formality and clarity in terms of where we're going from here, so thank you very much for that. Is this item received? Received. All right, so let's go back to the update on the ITS 2019 work plan update. I think, Mark, is that Sandro? Fantastic.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce my colleagues. I have Asha Gajiria. She is the Manager of Technology Solutions. And I also have my colleague, Allison Gazer. She's a Program Manager in an application area and is also going to be doing some of the presentation for us today. So this update to IT Subcommittee is a progress report on our 2019 work plan. It's also an opportunity for us to kind of stress the ITS commitment to the one city, one team approach. Client-focused and value-centric, ITS Services' goal is being a strategic IT partner to help the needs of all of our client groups by helping them achieve their business priorities through offering innovative IT business solutions. We also want those solutions to be reliable. We want those solutions to be on a dependable infrastructure. And importantly, we also want them to be on a secure environment that aligns with a lot of the digital experience that we talked about of having a smart city, secure city. Our work plan reflects our role as a technology leader at the city that enables all of our clients to deliver services to internal staff and external citizens. Our work plan is a living document that is continually referred to. It's updated, it's reviewed, and refreshed. Each objective has a set of priorities and long-term goals. In today's presentation, we are going to include the following updates. We're going to provide an update on our software modernization, which is an assessment of critical applications of our software platforms to identify opportunities for future capabilities as well as replacements. We're also going to present an update on our Geo Ottawa, which is providing the next generation of interactive maps that provide more user-friendly access to the city's map-based information. And we're also going to provide a security update. We want to highlight the significant work that's been completed to secure our environment and also be on track towards completing the outstanding recommendations for the follow-up audits. Software modernization. ITS supports more than 400 enterprise and business-specific applications, and we're accountable for all the software lifecycle decisions to ensure technology investments are risk-conscious, that they're value-driven, financially responsible, and meet the needs of the city departments. With a variety of application types, we have solutions that are built in-house, we have third-party solutions, we have solutions that are run on-premise, we have hosted solutions. The application environment today is complex and requires increasing resources to manage and maintain. In 2019, ITS software rationalization program consisted of identifying legacy systems that are reaching end of life for replacements. And some of the benefit of having this modernization include a reduction in the complexity of the city's technology footprint. It's also allowing us to have the latest and most secure and supported applications that run at the city. It also helps ensure business continuity. And it also allows us to take advantage of all the new features that are available on these world-class platforms. A really good example is our implementation of Office 365. Our former solution was running on an aging technology with very different workflows and appearances for different individuals. Now we have a world-class platform that makes the client experience all the same. And at the same time, the support is easier from an IT perspective. It also enables the concept of working anywhere. We always have the latest versions, and we have the latest updated security features that are already built into the platform that we own. So, how do we manage all this work? Well, ITS is using the industry best practice approach called Gartner's time model to guide the application review. In 2019, we identified 41 priority applications to be reviewed through this model. And through this model, it allows us to lead the organization in the shift of moving away from some of those applications that are not the most optimal from a city perspective, where we want to take most of the advantages. And this allows us to work with our client groups, look at where their roadmaps are, and align it with where we're going from a technology perspective. And today, in speaking with some of that investment, I'm now going to turn over to my colleague, Allison, and she's going to provide how we're investing in some of our platforms, including Geo-Ottawa.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Approximately 7 years ago, the City GIS team developed Geo-Ottawa. This interactive mapping tool is available both internally to city staff and externally to the citizens. It's actually quite popular. It's accessed about 1,000 times by external staff per day, citizens per day, and about 600 internal users every day. But unfortunately, due to the ever-changing technology landscape, there's a need to invest and replace the current Geo-Ottawa product with a responsive, mobile-friendly site. So the City GIS team has been using a development framework to lay the groundwork for the Geo-Ottawa replacement. They're using a technology called the Web App Builder, and with this, the team has developed a series of internal web mapping applications. The Web App Builder technology is based on a solution developed by our Enterprise GIS platform vendor and provides rapid, flexible development by city staff. This framework has been used already to create multiple internal sites for groups such as the Public Works and Environmental Services. The internal water and wastewater site provides the ability for users to visualize and identify infrastructure assets such as water pipes, hydrants, manholes, and catch basins. They can also view CCTV videos, label and print maps, measure distances between assets, and many other things. In fact, the data and services behind this site also run the augmented reality pilot that Mark mentioned previously. Another site created using the same technology was for the structures team. I've been informed by one of the program managers in the infrastructures branch that she uses this site in almost every meeting she attends in order to quickly check the status of structures such as a bridge or a large culvert, to provide up-to-date information on recent inspection information or status on maintenance responsibility. In total, the team has rolled out over 25 production sites using this technology framework. In late August of this year, we released to the public a new tool called Ottawa Over Time, and there's a picture of it on the screen, that was built, again, by city staff using that same base technology. This responsive, mobile-friendly site allows users to view aerial photographs ranging back from 2017 back to 1928. Excuse me. The easy-to-use slider lets you move seamlessly through time, allowing the user to see how Ottawa has changed over the years. As new air photo information becomes available, for example, the 2019 imagery that was recently flown, that will be added to the site. Importantly, this site is fully bilingual, and extensive work has been done to work towards AODA compliance. The public launch for this has been soft, but future communications have been planned in conjunction with the Open Ottawa portal. So based on the work completed to date, the next big release will be the replacement of the internal-facing GeoOttawa. This site is currently in beta format, and we're working with internal clients for feedback. One of the important tools that needs to be finalized and ported into the new functionality is called the Infrastructure Center. This allows a user to search a repository of a little over 160,000 reports and plans that were acquired pre- and post-amalgamation. So this will be released by the end of the year. The internal launch will solidify the technology framework and workflows required for the finalization of a public-facing GeoOttawa, and a beta release is planned to be completed in Q1 2020, and that release will be contingent on, again, ongoing AODA work. We will be engaging with the civic tech community this month, actually, to showcase our work to date, and we'll be asking them for their feedback and to provide comments. I'd also be happy to work with yourselves and your assistants to show you the tools that we've worked on, and love to solicit feedback as we create a secure and fully functioning mapping site. So on the security note, I'll pass it back to Sandro.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to security, you know, we want to support a smart city, secure city, and everyone has a role to play in security at the City of Ottawa. Work is being done and led by the IT security group. We proactively manage and minimize information security risks faced by the technology footprint of the corporation. Our technology team engage with the rest of IT and our client groups to proactively raise the level of awareness around information security. Throughout 2019, there's been significant improvements with technology security. We are supporting the secure rollout of Office 365 Enterprise application. Threat and risk assessments were completed against all of the Microsoft products that make up the Office 365 suite of tools, such as Outlook, SharePoint, and Teams, only to name a few. Further to this, close to 2/3 of network users have successfully completed the cybersecurity awareness training, and we are currently following up for reminders to ensure full compliance. In addition, the corporate rollout of using multi-factor authentication for our Office 365 user connections has seen a rapid adoption, providing an extra layer of trust in the user base. With respect to the follow-up audits, ITS has also completed significant work on our audit recommendations. An audit portfolio was established early this year with dedicated resources and an objective of completing all the recommendation deliverables by the end of the year. We're currently on track of meeting that goal of completing our outstanding recommendations by the end of the year. Some examples of what we've done is roles and responsibilities are being aligned to reflect the recent updates made to the technical security management governance team. Additionally, a challenge mechanism validation process is being added to the information technology risk management framework. Finalization and publishing of the updated information technology risk management framework is on track for the completion by the end of November of 2019. And ITS is working to align the ITRM framework and the information security policy updates with the enterprise risk management policy. Finally, some next steps. IT is positioned to deliver on the service and the cultural transformation mandate that we started working on 3 years ago as a management team. This includes developing our people to make sure that we have the tools and the training and the skills needed to deliver excellent service to our clients, and emphasizing the need for collaboration and building the one team, one city vision. We have created a culture and organizational condition to take the next step in this journey to build a client-centric culture and drive innovation and continuous improvement along with a smart city, secure city, where security is always a key component in a lot of the work that we do. A lot of that work is from a security is in the new platforms that we're investing in, such as Office 365, SAP, new base platforms as well. We're replacing legacy systems to reduce risk and modernize our service. We're rolling out new process to enable that smart city, secure city, such as using multi-factor authentication. And training really is very key from a training development and a platform training of our staff. And we believe by doing all this work, we're going to have a much more successful year in 2020 as well as the next term of council. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlucci. Obviously, a wide-ranging report. We do have, I believe, one delegation. Mr. Darwin, come on up. You know the drill. Whenever you're ready.
I do need a chair, I guess. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Allison mentioned, I'm going to talk about Geo-Ottawa because Geo-Ottawa is a critical piece of infrastructure for many of the things that I work on a day-to-day basis, and certainly critical to things like the Bike Ottawa maps, where we need geographic information in order to build that tool. And I think, as referenced earlier, the open data requests mostly are around transportation, which necessarily involves Geo-Ottawa. So I just want to thank Sandro and the team for giving this update on Geo-Ottawa. I have had multiple discussions with IT over the years, and this is a critical piece, and I'm really happy to hear the update. And also at Civic Tech meeting this past week, earlier on Tuesday, which was held here at City Hall, we did agree that we're going to have a review of the beta version of Geo-Ottawa coming on October 15th. So happy to facilitate that working with city staff. Just one other comment here is the timeline for Geo-Ottawa replacement is the public-facing version of that is based on Flash. And Adobe announced in 2017 that Flash will be end of life by the end of 2020. So the staff timeline is that this project will be completed by the end of 2020, which is good. So I just hope there's no delays in making that happen. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Darwin? No, in that case, moving to questions of staff. Thank you, Matt. Tim?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll just keep this one brief. Great work, by the way. I'd like to see the direction we're going, especially on software upgrades. One thing that has come to my attention, I raised this before, on our emails. Right now we have this, and this might be outside of this discussion. I'll gladly have it offline if it's easier. We currently have this big yellow giant bilingual warning that occupies quite a bit of space at the top of our emails. We actually have to open all the emails now to actually see it, which in my mind, I see as more of an issue. Before you could get the teaser and figure out quickly if it was just spam or whatever the case may be, and we don't have that opportunity anymore. I see that as probably just a stopgap measure to deal with. Obviously, we had a situation that occurred here within the city. Are we looking at a more serious solution to address that, whether it's spam or phishing, so we can remove that header?
Thank you, Chair, for your question. So we are certainly looking at solutions on the infrastructure side. In terms of that yellow banner, we have received some feedback on it and are planning on working on what does that piece look like specifically. So can we make improvements to the design? Can we potentially remove it from replies, that type of thing? So we are consulting with our technology security folks on that piece. And if there is specific feedback that you have, would be more than welcome to hear it. And it's something that we can connect with the various councillors' offices on.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Councillor Tierney. And that is it for questions. I will just reiterate, I think, what Mr. Darwin said. Geo-Ottawa is among the billions of websites that exist my favorite, absolutely. But let's try to get that public-facing in a non-Flash version as quickly as possible. And thank you very much for agreeing to work with the Civitech folks on an early look at that. Again, and I know Sandro has heard me say this over and over again, that engagement with our citizen contributors to IT is critical to me in this term of council. So with that, is this item received? Received. Okay. Which brings us to That's it. Are there any notices of motion? Inquiries? Other business? Is this meeting adjourned? Adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Good job, Mr. Chair.